Hello again, everybody. So today we're going to be drawing our forms in 2-point perspective. You're going to be drawing the 5 basic forms in 2-point perspective just to give you more practice as we move ahead here. We have the cube, the rectangular box, the pyramid, the cone, and the cylinder, the 5 basic ones. And if you're able to draw these 5 forms in 2-point perspective at different viewpoints, then really you'll be able to draw anything in 2-point perspective as we move forward here. And if you remember, the cube is the master or mother of all forms. So really, if you can draw the cube, it will help you immensely in being able to draw everything else. So remember that as we're going forward here, whenever you're in doubt on how to draw something in perspective, you always start with the cube. And that's what we're going to do for all of these objects, especially the pyramid, the cone, and the cylinder. We are going to start with a cube for those as well. Okay, so we have our rulers here. We have 2 pencils. We have our HB and our 2B, as long as they're 2 different leads. That way we can have light lines with the hard lead and darker lines with the soft lead. That way we can help see your work and not have everything super distracting if all the lines are the same darkness. And then we just have an eraser here. So for this assignment, your picture plane is actually an 8.5 by 11 page. So your picture plane, this is, your paper that you're drawing on. And when we're dealing with 2-point perspective, and remember that the vanishing points, when there's 2 of them, they're always so far apart. And that means when we're dealing with our picture plane, you will never see both of the vanishing points on your page, on your picture plane. It's possible you could have one vanishing point on the picture plane, but then the other one would be way all the way off towards that side. But we're just going to put them relatively in the center here, put them both off to the side. And if anything, compared to where our picture plane is and where these vanishing points are, they're a little on the close side, but that's not a huge deal. We can still, work with them here and just make things look a little bit distorted. If I was to really do a 2-point perspective, I actually would move these out just a little bit more off the page, maybe just a couple inches out either way. Just because usually the farther the vanishing points are, they're usually farther than you think, really. But the more accurate it'll look, the less distorted it will look. But we're just going to put them here. We have our horizon line. And so this is just to represent what our picture plane is today, this piece of paper, but you're going to be doing this all on an 11 by 17 piece of paper. So this is 11 by 17 piece of paper with an 8.5 by 11 picture plane. So this side is 11 inches, this side's 8.5. I actually just used this piece of paper as to trace it out. So I just traced my edges just to get my picture plane in here. And so as this is our picture plane, you want all 5 of your forms to be within the picture plane, inside of our drawing. So none of them are going to be going outside the box, and that will make sure that nothing gets too distorted by keeping them inside this picture plane here. So draw this out here, your 11 by 17 page. Draw your picture plane. We've got our horizon line, and we have our 2 vanishing points that are outside of the picture plane. And we're going to be drawing our objects in 2-point perspective, and that means that we're not looking at them straight on. We don't have a flat front face towards us. The closest thing towards us is an edge. Kind of like these drawings here, this edge of this cube in this box here, that's the closest thing towards us. And this is honestly most common. Most of the world that you're looking in, you see in 2-point perspective. You kind of have to try hard to actually see things in 1-point perspective, to actually be standing straight onto it. If you think of like a Wes Anderson movie, he loves to do everything in 1-point perspective. He'll have those shots where you're looking dead on and straight to things, and that's a very purposeful thing that he has to work hard to. So 2-point perspective is really the important one that you want to know the most, because you do see most things in 2-point perspective. And as a reminder, horizon line goes right in the center of our picture plane. And this means with 2-point perspective, we are looking straight ahead. We're not looking up or down in any way. We're just looking directly straight. And so the horizon line is our eye level. So that is where we are looking. Our eyes are looking here. And that means anything above the horizon line is above us, and so we're actually going to see the bottom of anything that's above the horizon line. Anything below the horizon line we're looking down at, so we're going to see the top of anything that's below the horizon line. And that will help you when we get to later on when we're looking at photographs to be able to tell where the horizon line is just by figuring out, like, can I see the top of this object? Can I see the bottom of this object? Can I not see the top or bottom? And that would mean that it's on the horizon line in some way. And for this assignment here, I want you to draw all 5 of these objects, and I want you to put them at different places around the page here. So we actually have some experience seeing what they look like above and below and right on the horizon line. So we're going to spread these out at different points on this page here. Okay, let's get started here. I'm going to start with a cube. Doesn't really matter where you put these on the page. If you want to, you can follow along and put them exactly where I'm putting them. If you're really struggling, that's what I recommend. But if you're feeling fairly comfortable, you want to challenge yourself a little bit, I would put them in different places than what I'm doing, because you'll actually get more experience doing that way and kind of figuring things out and not letting me doing all of the work for you, essentially. So, 2-point perspective, we always start with the edge that is closest to us. This front side here, this is our front edge. In 2-point perspective, all the verticals are perfectly vertical. Nothing is at an angle anyway. Everything is going to be straight up and down. So our front edge is vertical and perfectly straight. So this is the closest part to us. Now, I already decided I'm drawing this above the horizon line. So something I will know, since it is above the horizon line, I'm going to see 3 sides of this object. I'm going to see the left side, I'm going to see the right side, and I'm going to see the bottom. Most objects you're going to see 3 sides for, unless it's on the horizon line, then you only see 2. So we start with our center line here, and I want to draw both sides here. So I'm going to draw my left side, and this is left side is receding away from us towards this vanishing point over here. And I want you to draw all of these lines going all the way to the vanishing point as you're doing this. This will just help me when I'm critiquing your work, that I can actually see that you've done everything, and it'll make things go faster, which would be nice. So this is going to represent where this side is. I'm not going to put the horizontal yet. I'm just going to do both of these first just to get them in here. The right side is receding backwards towards the vanishing point here on the right. So I'm going to go from both corners to the vanishing points, very lightly drawing all the lines. Hopefully you can see these. I don't want to draw them too light so you can't see anything, so I'm going to make sure I draw them dark enough. And then I need to do basically the back edge of wherever this cube is. Now you do have to kind of eyeball it. You want to picture what a square looks like when it's receding away. So it's actually a little bit narrower than you usually expect. So don't make it really long, otherwise you got your rectangular. You want to try to make it as square as possible. And it's going to be perfectly vertical here. The other side, once again, eyeballing this, trying to make it look square. It might be a little bit wide, but that's not terrible. So I got my 2 sides, and then I need to draw my bottom. To find where the bottom is, I then have to connect the edges here to their vanishing point. So this edge will go to the vanishing point over here. And this edge will go to the other vanishing point on this side. And there we go, we have our bottom. So I'm actually just going to take my darker pencil and darken this up so we can see. And one of the things you do want to just be careful of is trying to make your lines as accurate as possible. You know, when you're connecting them try to get it right on the vanishing point, because if your lines are slightly off, as we know from before, that can throw off the whole thing. So being as accurate as possible is really, really important. And if you're not accurate, it will start to just throw off other things, and it can kind of snowball if you're really far off. So try your hardest to really keep things straight, keep things connected the right way. Okay, so this is the front of our cube, but for these objects, I do want to see these in their 3-dimensional forms, and it'll really help you as we get to the harder objects here. So we're going to see the inside of this cube as well, so I want you to draw the back sides of this. Essentially, you're making a glass cube here so that we can see. Now to do that, you essentially have to envision that there's a side here, that's the back left, and there's a side here that's the back right, and you're actually going to be seeing inside the top. So we're going to connect this side here to figure out what this square looks like. We're going to go back to this vanishing point on this side. Remember to draw these lightly, draw them all the way back to the vanishing point that I can see your work. We know where that one is, so then this one's going to go back to this side. And if done accurately enough, this line should be directly above your bottom corner. And you should be able to connect them. Now, you can keep your back lines a little bit lighter than your front, just so we can see. It'll help us see like the 3-dimension of this. I do want to make sure I draw this dark enough so that you guys can see this on the camera. So I'm going to try not to draw them too light. But then this is our glass cube that we're looking at. And then next we need to draw the wireframes. This is essentially a way of dividing this object up into smaller pieces, and this will really help you as you're drawing more and more complicated things in here. If you can subdivide your cube into smaller pieces, it'll help you make more complicated things like a chair or a couch or something like that. So the first thing you need to do is you need to find the center, because we want our subdivision, our wireframe, to be going through the center of this cube here. So we need to actually find where the center is, and we're not going to guess. We're going to use subdivision. So to do that, whenever you have a rectangle or a square in perspective, using subdivision, if you just make an X through the center or through the corners here, where the X's meet, that is the direct center of this box here. So from there, we know that all our verticals are vertical, so all I need to do is just make a vertical line going straight up and down from there, and that's good. And then, well, let's just do that here. And then to figure out where this one is, it's actually very close to this line, but it's slightly off. All we need to do is connect a line from our vanishing point through this center line that we made, and that will give us what our horizontal wireframe would look like. So there we go. And I can do the same thing to this side, but the beauty of this is when you're dealing with a cube at least, once you figure out what one side looks like, you can easily figure out the others. I actually still need to find where this center is. So I'm actually still gonna do this. I'll do my X. So it'll give me the center halfway. Here's my center. This is where my vertical goes. Perfect. And you'll notice that the center line, it's not visually like halfway between here and here. Like this distance isn't the same as this distance. Because things get smaller as they recede, the side that is farther away is going to be a little bit smaller than the side that is closer to us. So remember, it's going to look like it's not exactly in the center. That's why we need to do subdivision and figure it out. So then I have this one. And then I could do the same thing, you know, connecting this line to the vanishing point, but it should connect, if I measured everything correctly, it should go from this point through my center to my vanishing point, if all is done right. And there we go. We got my wireframe there, and then the bottom's easy because we know where this point is, we know where this center point is, so we can connect this center point through to my vanishing point. Do it in lightly first. Same thing with this one. This to the vanishing point. So we have what that looks like, and I'll just darken it. And there we go. We have our cube in 2-point perspective. Okay. Let's move on here. Let's do our rectangular box. I'm actually going to put this one on the horizon line. Not directly in the center. I'm going to put a little bit below. And I'm going to try to make this one a slightly different size than my cube. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. So it's a bigger size than that one here. Give me better practice. So just like the cube, you start with the front edge, the side that is closest to us. Make sure this is dark enough you can see it. And we need to figure out this one, because it's on the horizon line, we're actually only going to see two sides of it. We're not going to see the top or bottom because it is on that horizon line here. It crosses through it. So we're going to draw our bottom. We're going to draw the left side here that is receding backwards towards this one vanishing point. And the other side will recede back towards this vanishing point. And one thing you have to remember as you're doing this is that all lines that are parallel to each other will recede back to the same vanishing point. So if they're parallel to each other in real life, so in real life, this line is parallel to this line if you had a cube sitting in front of you. And it's also parallel to this line and this line. It means they're all going back to the same vanishing point. So if you're ever unsure which vanishing point something goes back to, try to think of that. Think of all lines that are parallel to each other in reality will recede back to the same vanishing points. Okay, so we're gonna do, this is a box, so both sides are not actually gonna be the same. And once again, it doesn't really matter, you know, the shape of your box, but we do wanna make sure this doesn't look like a cube. We want it to be bigger. One side's longer than the other. And we can darken this. This is essentially what our outside of our rectangular box looks like, because as I said, it is on the horizon line. We're not gonna see the top or bottom in any way. Essentially, it's right in front of our eyes is what you're imagining here. We are still gonna draw the inside of this. And as we're doing the wireframes, I'm only drawing the wireframes on the front. We're not drawing the wireframes on the back because then things will get really messy. So we're only drawing the wireframes on the outside here. So you don't have to worry about the wireframes on the box. Unless you want more practice, you want to draw them in the back, you can. Just make sure I can still see what's happening. So we did the outside of our rectangular box. Next thing, let's draw the inside. Make this a glass box here. So we're going to be seeing a back side that's receding backwards. That's essentially parallel to this one in real life. The back of the box here, that's going to be shorter. And then the other side, that's going to be going back to the other vanishing point. So we'll start with this one. So thinking about this box here, this back edge in real life is parallel to this edge. And that's how I know it's going to go back to the same vanishing point. And let's start with the bottom here. So, and then this back edge is going to be parallel to the front one. So it's going back to the same vanishing point. It's things like this. I gotta make sure my ruler doesn't get off track here. Okay, so we've got the bottom of our box here. Make it slightly darker, just so I can be sure that you guys can see this. Now, if done right, it means the back edge should be right here, and the other corner should be somewhere over here. Now, and you remember, the closer we get to the horizon line, the flatter things are gonna get. So the farther away this edge is, you know, the more that angled this is, and the closer we get to the horizon line, the flatter it is. So we're not gonna see a whole ton of the top of this box here when we're looking inside of it, but we are gonna see some of it. It's just gonna be very narrow. And then this side goes back to this vanishing point. So if done correctly, well, those two intersect should be directly above my other line here. Looks like I did a fairly good job. I can just darken this one and darken this one. And there we go. Now we have the rectangle. You can see the inside of the top here, the inside of the bottom, and both back sides. Let's do our wireframe, and we're going to do the exact same thing as we did for this one here. So we're going to start by finding the center point. Let's make an X. So we know this is the center. We know the vertical one will be above here. And try to be careful not to darken lines until you're absolutely certain it's in the exact right spot. Because when you darken it, it's almost impossible to erase if you darken it too much. And then this one, so we know this, the wireframe is going to go through the center that we just drew. So there's that one. And then actually, I can just connect this directly to the other vanishing point. Actually, before that, I'm just going to do this the right way. I'm going to draw my X. And so, as I said before, remember, it looks like it's farther. It is farther. This distance from here to here is bigger than the distance from here to here because it's receding away from us. So this is where the center is. So I know the top, or the vertical wireframe goes there. Horizontal one goes here. And I know I did it right because it connected from here to here all the way to that vanishing point. Now my page is getting a little dirty here, so be careful. I think it's my ruler that is just making things dirty. So make sure to clean yours up as you go along. You don't want to hand in a really dirty piece of paper. It's all a matter of presentation when you're an artist. If you hand in something to a client that is all dirty and messy, has smudges all over it, that just tells your client that you don't care. You know, and you want them to think you care. If you treat it well, like you give them a really nice, pristine drawing, they know that you care about it. So try to keep things clean as you're going along. Okay, got the two easy ones. Let's go with the harder ones here. So pyramid, slightly harder. I'm going to draw this one down here. Now, you remember the cube is the master and mother of all forms, so we're actually going to draw a cube first to put the pyramid inside of that. So just like this cube here, I'm going to start with the edge that is closest to us. I'm going to try to go, I don't want to make this exact same as that one. I'm going to go over here. So we start with the cube, that the edge closest to us. And then we're going to draw the sides, and this one's below the horizon line. I know I'm going to see three sides of this cube, and I know I'm going to see the top of it is going to be one of those sides. Okay, and because I want this to be a cube, I'm going to try to make this look like it's even. I'm not going to do this too dark though, because we're not, in the end of the drawing, we're not going to see that. Yeah, that's good. Do that one there. And then I just need to connect the top corners back to their vanishing points. And you know, this line here is parallel in real life to the line that I'm about to draw, so it goes back to the same vanishing point. This one goes here, and this one goes there. So we have our cube. Now, inside of it, I hope you can picture how a pyramid's gonna fit. Really what we're gonna need is the bottom to be able to figure everything else first. So let's draw our glass cube. So we're not done yet. Let's keep drawing our glass one. So I'm gonna draw the bottom first. That's kind of the key piece of information here that we need. So here is the bottom. And then from there, the top point of this pyramid is going to be in the center of the top of the cube. So we want to find the center top of the cube because that will tell us where the top of this pyramid is. So I'm going to do my subdivision here for the top. And this is our center point, and this gives us all the information we need for our pyramid now. So I now know we can connect a point from the top of our pyramid to all of the corners. 2, 3, and 4. And there's our pyramid. Let me darken this in so you can really see it. And I'm just going to darken the front edges. And there is our pyramid in perspective. And remember, we start with that cube first. That's going to give you the information you need. Let me slightly darken the back sides a little bit so you can see them as well. I mean, honestly, it helps if you make your lines very light, all your other lines very light. But you do want to make sure I can see them too when you scan it in and send it to me. So don't erase them, leave them all there. It just helps if you darken the ones you really want me to see. Okay, so we have our pyramid. It's three-dimensional. We can see the back corner of it too, so it's our glass pyramid. Now we need to draw our wireframes. To do that, so first thing we need to do is let's do our vertical lines here. Now, this side, you know, it's not straight up and down, it's actually at an angle. So this line's gonna be at an angle here, but we need to know where the center of this point is here. And I don't want you guessing. You're not guessing where the center point is. You're using subdivision. At no point should you really be guessing, except for when you're trying to make a cube, all sides look even. That's really the only guessing that's kind of going on here. Your educated guess. So we got that. We got our center point on the bottom. Connect this to the vanishing point. This will give us where this center is. connect this to the other vanishing point, and that will give us where this piece is. So we now know that this wireframe piece goes here. The other wireframe goes from the top to there. And then we want to find the center point from here to here. Now, we have to imagine this piece, you have to imagine like a square that's on an angle. So it's actually tilting backwards. So to do that, you need to draw that whole square that is tilted. So I'm going to imagine this line on the top here and connect it like that. So like you're laying down a square against the side of this pyramid. So I'm going to use my vanishing point here to actually find what the top is. So this is the top of that square. We'll go from here to here and there to there. So that's what this shape is, what this looks like. And then we just need to subdivide that to get where the center is going to be. And my lines are a little bit off, that's why it's not totally centered there. But it is here, and then you can connect a line from this through here to your vanishing point. And then once you have this spot, you don't need to subdivide the other one. You can just connect this to your vanishing point. And then we have our pyramid subdivided up. And I know it doesn't look like that this is the halfway point, right? It looks like it's really tiny on top, but it's because this plane, the side of the pyramid here, is tilted away from us. So it is receding away from us. So it's actually getting smaller as it goes farther away. Okay, let's move on to our cone. It's gonna be similar to this, but we're gonna start dealing with ellipses next. I gotta make sure I leave room to actually do my my cylinder in here. I'm gonna do my cylinder up top. Let me do my cone. Actually, I could do my cylinder here, my cone here. Yeah. Let's do it down here. That way I can do 2 ellipses on top and bottom, I've decided. So we're gonna make this one here. Try and make this a little bit taller than that one. So we're starting with our cube because the cube is the master mother of all forms. We're starting with our cube even though we're drawing a cylinder here. So we start with the edge that is closest to us. I'm gonna draw out that whole cube like I've done for all of these. Trying not to get sloppy here. Okay. And this looks like it's going to be overlapping my my box here a bit. But that's good. That's totally fine. Okay. Can get a little messy here if things are overlapping like this. As long as you can see what you're doing, that's all that matters. Okay, so I have my cube. Actually, this is looks a little too tall. I need to make it a little bit wider. Doesn't quite look square. We want this to be more square. Yeah, still needs to go out too. This is where it comes to eyeballing, and we actually, we have a pretty good idea of what a cube looks like in perspective, so we're usually pretty good at telling when things are a little bit off. So I just made it a little bit bigger. Now I gotta make sure I connect this edge. There we go. And then that one's still good. Okay, that looks a little bit more cube-like. This doesn't have to be a perfect cube for your cylinder. At least want to make sure that the sides look like they're more cube-like. Okay, so started just like this one, have the outside of our cube here. So next thing up, let's draw the inside of it because we're going to need that information as well. So we're going to start with the bottom. Okay, we have the bottom of our cube here. We don't really need the back side. I'll draw it in anyway. So we have the bottom of our cube. Now we need to draw a cylinder inside of it. So a cylinder is essentially the same thing as a pyramid, except the bottom is a circle and not a square. So we need to take the bottom and make it into a circle. To do that, we're going to subdivide it. So if you remember how to make ellipses way back before in the beginning, we have to do a little bit more subdivision than we did for a wireframe. So we have to basically find all the edge points, or at least a lot of them. They'll help us eyeball our ellipse. So we find our center. Now we want to find these edges here. Basically, you're making like a wireframe on the bottom. So it's going to go from the vanishing point through that to there. And then from here to the vanishing point. Oops. And now what this gives us is we know that our circle, the edges of our circle are going to touch here, 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 and here. We have that point. I mean, you could theoretically eyeball this, just these 4 points, but it'd probably be a pretty bad ellipse. So what we want to find is the other points that are here. And the way to do that, if you remember, I'm going to connect these 4 points that I made. I'm going to connect all 4 of them. So it's like I'm making a box within a box. It's like Inception. And now this is not super precise, but where this point is going to be, if you imagine from here where this line is to the corner, you see those 2 points? So imagine where halfway is, and it's actually going to be just inside of halfway. So there's a little bit of guesstimating that's going on, but just inside of halfway here. Same thing, just inside of halfway here, just inside. You're definitely eyeballing it. And then from there, you just connect these. Let's make them darker so you can see them all. These 8 dots, you're going to connect them. And if you remember, when drawing ellipses, because ellipse is a circle in perspective, all sides are gonna be even. So you want to try to make this as round as possible. Or as, evenly sided. So this side should look like a mirror of that side there. So it definitely takes a little bit of practice. I'm going to darken this in. So sometimes your ellipses can be a little bit wonky if you don't do this, super accurately, but try to make it as clean as you possibly can. And then you have your ellipse here. Okay, from there, we want the top edge. So just like this one here, we need to find where that top point is. So we're going to connect this and connect that. That gives us, oops, I'm gonna have to sharpen that now. Gives us our top point, and we just connect this to our, let's go to our outer edge here, and this to our outer edge here. And you can see this is looking a little bit crooked, and the reason is it's because our vanishing points are too close. So there's a little bit of distortion happening here. It's a little bit wonky. Oh, look, we're almost touching our rectangle there. So there's a little bit of distortion that's happening. Things aren't looking exactly perfect, but that's what happens when your vanishing points are too close. So from here, let's do our wireframe. I'm going to connect this one. I have that corner here, so I can just connect that right to the top. I have this one here. I can just connect that right to the top. To find the midway, we're going to do the same thing we did on that side here. So I'm going to go from here through the top. And actually my top I think is a little bit off. I think I drew that a little bit off too. Anyway, we've got from here to here. So essentially we're making a square, that's leaning up against our cone. It's kind of flat on top of it. Find our midway. That gives us our center. So there's going to be an ellipse right here. Now really, you should measure out this ellipse, but I'll let you eyeball it just a little bit for your wireframe. One thing you have to remember as we're doing this, the closer you get to the horizon line, your narrower your ellipses are going to get. So an ellipse down here is going to look like this. Like it's going to get closer and closer to a circle. And the closer you get to your horizon line, the narrower and narrower your ellipses get. So they get really thin. So something as you're drawing your ellipses here, realize the farther away they're going to be, the wider they're going to be. And the closer to the horizon line, the narrower they're going to be. So I know that this ellipse is going to be slightly narrower than that one. So I am going to just eyeball it a little bit, making sure it looks like it's wrapping around. Ideally, you don't want to eyeball it, but we're going to do it just for the wireframe for there. Okay, we have our cone. Last up, let's do our cylinder. And we're going to put our cylinder up here. So essentially make the cylinder, we're doing the same thing that we did with our rectangle, but two of the sides are going to be ellipses. And you can orient these however you want. They don't have to be straight up and down. They don't have to be the same angles that I'm doing them. So I'm actually going to make my cylinder sideways so I can fit it in this spot a little bit better. So I'm going to start with the closest edge. Wrong pencil. And let me just sharpen my pencil here quickly. I have my sharpener. If you just have the tracing paper, that's totally fine. These are the sharpeners that come with these pencils. And they get really nice pointed tips. Okay. Moving on here. So we have our front edge of our cylinder. I'm going to make a rectangular box just like I did last time. So I know I said the cube is the master or mother of all forms, but when you're doing something like this where it's not perfectly even on all sides, essentially you're just making a rectangle instead of a square. Oh, big thumbprint on this one. Yeah, my hands are getting dirty. Okay, from here we're going to do this side. And so remember, this is 2-point perspective, so every single object we're drawing, the closest thing to us is a corner, something you never want to forget. I'm going to do this one. Let's do this one pretty long here. Let's do the back here. Let's do this back. I want this side to actually be a square so my cylinder looks right, so I'm trying to eyeball it to make it look more like a square in perspective. Then back here, do the bottom because this is above the horizon line. So that means we're going to see the bottom of this object here. So we have our rectangle, and I'm not going to darken this yet because we're making a cylinder, not a rectangle. So I'm going to start by doing the ellipse on this side. So just like I did down here, I'm going to subdivide it to make my ellipse. So now I have the center. And remember, I have to find those 8 points along the edge of where I'm going to make this. So this one goes through the center. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 points. Then we'll connect. And we'll connect this one. Connect this one. And that, and then just around halfway, I mean, you can just say around halfway is totally fine. Gives you that. So now we have our 8 points, and we can play connect the dot. There you go, trying to make this as even and smooth as possible. You don't want to look too wonky. Make sure you round out the sides. And definitely the more you do this, the more practice you have. And you get even better at it if you actually were to look at an ellipse in front of you. If you sat a cup in front of you and try to draw it, you'll get much better at this. Okay, I got my ellipse. Then we need to draw the ellipse on the back side here. So let's draw the inside of this box. Okay, so you can see the inside of this box. You can see it's looking a little bit more rectangular than I was hoping, but that's okay. So this is what the box looks like. Now we need to do the same thing, do subdivision, make an ellipse. So we'll make our X to find the center. Let's do vertical. And we'll do the horizontal one. So now we have our 4 points, 2, 3, 4. Connect those 4 points. Oops. And you can just say roughly between the center of those points there. And now you have your 8 points. Connect the dots. And I like to use light lines, you know, being very sketchy. I'm not just doing one hard line. Trying to sketch it out, find where that is. And then when I'm feeling pretty good about it, I can darken it. And there we go. We've got our 2 ellipses. And then all we have to do is connect the top and the bottom. So I'm basically connecting wherever the topmost edge is on both of these. This one there, and this one to there. And there we go. We have our cylinder and our all of our other forms in perspective. I'm going to try to clean this up a little bit better. And that is it. Our 5 forms in perspective. So there you go. Good luck with this, you guys. I know it's definitely challenging, but as long as you keep, the rules in mind as we're going, start with the edge that's closest to you. Remember that the cube is the master and mother of all forms, so you're making a cube essentially for all of them before you make anything else. Remember, ellipses get narrower as they get closer to the horizon line. And same thing here with our vanishing points on the side. You can see this ellipse is closer to this vanishing point than this one, so it's getting narrower. So, other things to keep in mind here. Okay, that is it, you guys, and good luck.